Now is one of the people who plans to challenge the president in court, California Attorney General and former Congressman Xavier Becerra. Mr. Attorney General, good to see you again. You just heard our constitutional law professor. What do you make of his argument about the state of California's potential standing or non-standing in this lawsuit?
Chuck, first, good to be with you. And secondly, I think I can find another $7,999,999,999 other reasons why we would have standing to sue the president for this illegal declaration.
And what would that be?
Well, he's going to harm the people of California. We pay our taxes. Those dollars are allocated by Congress for particular purposes, very important purposes, whether it's to help Americans in California who suffer from natural disasters like wildfires, mudslides, floods. They are displaced. They need those resources. There are people who are serving in our military, men and women, along with their families who live in military installations that need to have a number of projects undertaken. They will suffer. There are programs underway in California where we try, for example, to interdict drugs before they come into our borders, and those could be impacted. Any number of ways that California could be hurt, and right now we're reviewing that declaration to make our case in court.
What do you believe is the toughest case for you to make on standing? I mean, that's a pretty expansive view of standing. By your explanation, it sounds like any taxpayer in America would have standing.
If an American is harmed by the actions of our government, that individual, that American has an opportunity to have his or her day in court. California has close to 40 million Americans. We pay a lot in taxes. We would be harmed if more than $8 billion that was directed for important purposes were illegally redirected by this president to a border wall. And so we will defend the interests of the people of California all the way.
He looks like he's only going to focus on Texas. Do you believe if you can't sue individually, do you try to create sort of a class action of multiple states would that enhance your argument?
Well, remember, the harm comes not just by him encroaching on property in my state, for example. The harm comes if the president steals taxpayer money that was destined to help Californians and misuses it for something Congress never intended. And so there are a number of bases for which any number of states or individuals would have a reason to go into court and say, judges, you got to stop the president from overreaching.
What is you defended the President Obama's decision when he, by executive order, tried to expand protections not just for DACA recipients, but for those parents of DACA, when he tried to expand it. And the courts essentially said no, that he couldn't do that. What is the difference in what President Obama was trying to do that you defended that action and what President Trump is doing today, of which you're contesting?
President Obama did not declare a national emergency and tried to extinguish the operation of any number of national laws, including constitutional provisions. President Obama used his executive authority to try to determine how we would enforce immigration laws. He never tried to change those laws. He just said, this is a way I'll enforce them with the resources I have. I'm going to go after criminals who are undocumented versus mothers and children who are undocumented. That's just prioritizing your prosecutorial duties. President Trump is saying that, like 9/11 or like the Iran hostage crisis, America is in an emergency situation where he must suspend all sorts of laws in order to do what is important for the country. In this case, he says to build his campaign border wall, which everyone along the border, or many people along the border, most experts will tell you, is not the way you try to protect the American people from drugs and other types of criminal activity. But again, that's up to the president. The president is his own worst enemy. He is giving us some of our best evidence when he says he's happy to do this, when he says that he didn't need to do this. It's a great thing to do. I mean, I don't think there are many presidents, 9/11, President Bush or President Carter during the Iran hostage crisis, who are saying, oh, this is a great thing to do. I don't need to do this. No, an emergency is when it's an existential circumstance facing the country.
ultimately,
Donald Trump hasn't found that.
Ultimately, this is right now appears to be a dispute between the legislative and the executive branch.
No,
Does
it's more than that.
Congress, well, let me ask you this. Does Congress have to basically do everything in its power to stop the president here in order to get the Supreme Court to act? Because, Bill, I don't know if you heard, Bill Kristol was making the argument that if Congress, the Supreme Court might actually let this go, even if they think let this go, because ultimately Congress does have the power to withdraw this emergency if somehow they created a veto-proof majority to do that.
By statute, under the emergency statute, federal statute, Congress can take certain steps to try to undo what the president is trying to undertake.
Right.
If they fail, that doesn't mean the president gets to do what he's doing. There are constitutional constraints on the president as well. The president is not above the law. And simply because Congress, Republicans in the Senate may try to block this effort to stop the president from doing something illegal doesn't mean that we're all hopelessly in despair, unable to enforce our constitutional protections.
California Attorney General Xavier Becerra, I have no doubt this lawsuit's coming soon. And when it does, we look forward to talking with you about it then. Thanks for coming on and sharing your views, sir.
Thanks, Chuck.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.